Today, we're diving into one of the biggest questions in philosophy, a question that almost brought the whole enterprise to a standstill. And we're going to talk about the thinker who answered it, Immanuel Kant. Now, his work can be pretty dense, I'll give you that, but his central idea is a complete game changer. And it all kicked off when another philosopher's skeptical challenge woke him from his dogmatic slumber. And there you have it, from Kant himself. He's giving all the credit, or maybe the blame, to the Scottish skeptic David Hume. To really get Kant's brilliant answer, we first have to understand the absolutely terrifying problem that Hume put on the table, a problem that threatened the very idea of knowledge itself and sent all of metaphysics spiraling into a crisis.
You see, before Kant came along, metaphysics was, well, a total mess. This is the branch of philosophy that's supposed to tackle the biggest questions out there. Reality, being, God, the whole shebang. But Kant himself called it a battlefield, where all these different schools of thought were just endlessly shouting at each other, never really getting anywhere.
And what makes this so interesting is what was happening in other fields. Physics and math were making these incredible leaps, discovering universal laws. And then you had metaphysics, the supposed queen of the sciences, which couldn't seem to agree on a single thing. It had failed to produce even one piece of certain, universally accepted knowledge. Philosophy was basically running in circles. And then along came David Hume with a philosophical sledgehammer.
Okay, so David Hume was what we call an empiricist. Basically, he believed that all our knowledge has to come from our senses, what we see, hear, and feel. And Hume took this idea to its logical, and for a lot of people, pretty terrifying conclusion. He decided to launch an attack on the very bedrock of scientific certainty, the idea of cause and effect.
And this question is the bombshell. Just think about it for a second. We see lightning, and then we hear thunder. So we say the lightning caused the thunder. It seems obvious, right? But Hume asks a really annoying question. Did you ever actually see the cause? Really see it. You see one event, sure. Then you see another event. But where's the necessary connection? Where's the part that says it must happen that way?
And Hume's conclusion is just brutal. He says we never, ever perceive a necessary link between events. All we ever see is that one thing constantly follows another. And because we've seen it happen 1,000 times, our imagination just creates a habit, this feeling of expectation. We then mistake that feeling, that habit in our own minds, for some objective law of the universe. So for Hume, all of science, all our certain knowledge, was built on nothing more than a hunch.
So this is the dogmatic slumber Hume woke Kant from. Kant realized you couldn't just argue with Hume's point. On some level, Hume was right. You can't pull a must out of experience. So, Kant did something truly genius. He didn't try to answer the old question. He threw it out and asked a completely new one. Now, to do this, Kant first needed to sharpen his philosophical tools. He breaks down judgments into two types. First, you've got analytic judgments. This is where the second part is already contained in the first, like all bachelors are unmarried. Yeah, that's what a bachelor is. It doesn't teach you anything new. But then you have synthetic judgments, which actually add new information, like all bodies have weight. That tells you something new about bodies. It expands your knowledge. Okay, now here is the puzzle, the thing that Hume's system just can't handle. Take a simple bit of math. 7 plus 5 equals 12. Kant points out that the concept of 12 isn't actually hiding inside the concept of 7 plus 5. You have to combine them. You have to synthesize them to get the answer. So it's synthetic. But, and this is the key part, you also know it's true with absolute certainty, and you don't need to go out and test it with apples or anything. You know it a priori, before experience. So, how is that possible?
And this is it. This is the big one. This is the question that Kant's entire philosophical project is built on. He's not asking if we have knowledge that goes beyond experience anymore. He's saying, look, math and physics exist, so we obviously do. The question now is how. How is it even possible that we can know something new about the world with absolute certainty?
Kant's answer was so radical, so world-changing, that it's called the Copernican revolution in philosophy. Just like Copernicus changed everything by putting the sun at the center of the solar system instead of the Earth, Kant was about to completely reorient our view of knowledge itself.
For centuries, pretty much everyone just assumed that knowledge works like this. Our minds correctly conform to objects out in the world. The mind was just a blank slate, or maybe a passive mirror, just sitting there reflecting an external reality that was already fully formed.
Kant flips this completely on its head. He says, what if we've had it backwards this whole time? What if objects have to conform to our minds? Our mind isn't some passive mirror. No, it's an active system. It's like a projector that imposes its own structure, its own rules, onto the raw data it gets from the senses. The fundamental rules we see in reality, they don't come from out there. They come from in here.
So what is this mental software? Kant breaks it down into two main parts. First, the forms of sensibility. That's space and time. He argues that these aren't things that exist out in the world. They're more like the fundamental grid, the canvas that our mind uses to perceive anything at all. Then, you've got the categories of understanding. These are the core concepts, like cause and effect or substance, that our mind uses to organize all that sensory data into coherent things. The reason we see cause and effect everywhere isn't because it's a law of the universe, it's because our minds are hardwired to think that way. Now, this revolution has massive consequences. On one hand, it's brilliant. It solves Hume's problem by saying the laws of science are certain because they come from the universal structure of the human mind. But it also draws a very hard line around what we can and cannot know.
So Kant basically splits reality in two. On one side, you have the phenomenal world. This is the world of our experience, the world as it appears to us after being structured by our minds. This is the world of science and math, and in this world we can have real, certain knowledge. But then, there's the noumenal world. These are the things in themselves, reality as it might be, totally independent of our minds. And of this world, Kant says, we can know absolutely nothing.
So here's the bottom line. Kant saves knowledge from Hume's skepticism. He gives science a brand new, solid foundation, not by looking out at some shifty, uncertain world, but by looking inward into the universal, unchanging structures of the human mind. The laws of nature feel so certain because they are the very laws our minds use to build experience in the first place.
But Kant's revolution leaves us with this incredible, profound thought. It means we aren't just passive observers in the universe. We are active participants. We are, in a very real sense, the co-creators of the world we experience. The fundamental laws of reality are actually the laws of our own reason. It's an idea that completely reshaped all of Western thought, and it forces us to ask a pretty heavy question. If we are the architects of our own reality, what does that make us?
This is for entertainment and educational purposes only.